Welcome to Eerie Trail, where forgotten roads, haunted silence, and long shadows tell stories no one else dares to remember. If you're drawn to the strange, the lost, and the unsettling, you're in the right place. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories that don't just scare, they stay with you. It was the first week of July when the old Kerr house finally sold. After sitting vacant for over a decade, its white clapboard siding blistered by the relentless West Texas sun, shutters hanging like broken limbs, and the brittle grass in the yard yellowed to the color of old bone, someone bought it. People in the town of Whitney said it was cursed, though they wouldn't say so outright. They'd just shake their heads when you asked about it, mutter something about the heat getting into your blood if you weren't careful, and change the subject. That's how small towns handle their ghosts. Not with exorcisms or seances. But silence. The man who bought the house wasn't from around there. His name was Mitchell, and he was a quiet sort, in his mid-30s maybe, with a thinning patch of hair and the kind of hollowed-out look in his face that made people think divorce before he even spoke. He drove a dusty blue pickup, didn't smile much, and paid in full, no mortgage, no haggling. Just handed over a check with shaking hands, like it was burning him to hold on to the money. Mitchell moved in on a Monday. That was the first strange thing. Locals know better than to move into a house on a Monday. It's an old superstition, mostly forgotten, but out in Whitney they still whisper, "Move in on Monday, move out in a box." Of course, no one told Mitchell. Not that he'd have listened. He started cleaning right away, not just sweeping and wiping down counters, but pulling up floorboards, hauling out rusted pipes, scrubbing mold off the inside of the walls. Neighbors said they could hear hammering at all hours, and when the wind blew just right, they swore they could smell bleach and something fouler, something like old meat turned to rot in the summer heat. Still, no one called the police. Nobody. In Whitney liked to draw that kind of attention to themselves. On the third night, Mitchell started digging. It began in the backyard. A wide, shallow hole at first, maybe 6 feet across. The next night, it was deeper, then wider. By the weekend, it looked like a grave. He worked under floodlights, shirt off, sweat soaking through his jeans, his arms trembling with each shovel of dirt. But he didn't stop. Not even when the ground grew hard with clay, or when the July heat beat down so heavy you could see waves rising off the cracked earth. People watched. Some from behind drawn curtains, others from their porches, sipping beer and muttering about how he'd never make it through August. Some said they saw him talking while he dug, whispering like he had someone down there with him. Others said they heard voices answering back. Mitchell didn't sleep. At least, no one ever saw him turn the lights off. And then came the letters. They were small, white envelopes left on the doorsteps of 5 houses closest to the Kerr place. No return address. Just a single type page inside, the same message printed on each one. I was the first. That was all. No explanation. No signature. A woman named Carla Jennings, who lived 2 doors down, brought hers to the sheriff. He read it over twice, scratched the stubble on his jaw, and said, "Probably just some kid screwing around." He told her not to worry, but she did. She stayed up that night with her husband's old shotgun across her lap, staring out the window at the Kerr place. The next morning her car was gone, so was she. No note. No signs of struggle. Just her shotgun left on the porch with 1 shell missing. The sheriff didn't say anything to the press. Didn't want the Austin stations poking around. Small towns don't like to be on the news unless it's about a chili cook-off or some centenarian birthday. But word got out anyway. The second week, Mitchell painted the inside of the house black. Not just the walls, but the ceilings, the windows, the light fixtures, even the floors. A thick, tarry paint with a smell so strong it made your teeth ache just walking past. The mailman refused to deliver anything after that. Said the air was wrong around the place, like it had weight. Like breathing it in was some kind of sin. Then came more letters. 10 this time. Each one delivered to a different house, all on the same day. The same message again. I was the first. Now people were afraid to sleep. The air in Whitney felt like it had gone sour, like something was fermenting in the dark. Dogs wouldn't go near the Kerr place. One boy from the high school dared. Another to break inside and steal something off the mantel. He came back with a silver picture frame, empty. He was dead the next morning, slipped in the shower and cracked his skull open. That's what the coroner said. But his mother said he'd been screaming in his sleep, something about a pit, and hands that reached up through the floorboards. Mitchell was still digging. By the third week. The hole was nearly 30 feet wide, maybe 15 deep. You couldn't see the bottom anymore. He'd hauled in scaffolding and ropes, working like a man possessed. Someone said they saw a shape at the bottom, something wet and pale and not moving. But they wouldn't get close enough to be sure. Another 20 letters went out. Same message, same envelope, same typewriter font. People started to leave town. Just packed up and drove off in the night. No goodbyes. No garage sales. Just gone. The schools closed early that summer. The church stopped holding services. The sheriff started drinking again. On the 31st night, Mitchell rang the old bronze bell that hung in the Kerr house's attic. No one remembered it being there before. The sound it made wasn't like a bell. It was low and wet and seemed to vibrate through your bones. It echoed across the town, through cornfields and trailers, through empty storefronts and dry creek beds. And the dogs started howling, all at once, like a choir raised to something ancient and cruel. At dawn, the house was gone, just gone. Where the Kerr place had been, there was only dirt, churned and blackened, smoking in places like something had burned deep underground. No sign of Mitchell. No wood, no bricks, no ashes. Just a hole, still there. Still open. People stopped calling it the Kerr place after that. They called it first. They don't say why. They don't say what's coming next. But everyone knows, because once the first goes in, the others always follow. They found the baby on the second step of the town hall. Just after midnight, under a suffocating East Texas sky, swollen with the threat of summer storms. Someone laid it there, wrapped in a heavy wool blanket, not crying, not cooing, just ... Watching. The sheriff, Ray Decker, found it when he came to check the storm shutters. It stared up at him with eyes too wide for its skull and too still for something alive. No one claimed the child. There wasn't a note. No baby bottle. No diaper. Bag. Just a single white card tucked into the folds of the blanket, stained with something brown and sticky. Second. That was all it said. Sheriff Decker didn't tell anyone about the card. He told the local papers that the child had likely been abandoned by a teen runaway or a drug addict passing through. Maybe someone from Houston or Dallas. He didn't want to start a panic. Trinity Falls was a quiet place, tucked between pine forests and blacktop roads that went nowhere important. Bad things happened out there, but not here. Not in his town. The baby was handed over to Child Protective Services. A foster home was arranged. The town returned to normal. Until the silence started. It began on the third night. No crickets. Number. Cicadas. No night birds. Just stillness. Thick and choking, like the town had slipped underwater. People complained that their ears ached, like a storm was coming, but the sky stayed clear. The air tasted like metal. Pets started to disappear. Cats mostly, but a few dogs too. All gone without a sound. No struggle. No blood. Then came the scratching. Walls, windows, attics, always at night. Slow, methodical, like nails dragging across. Plaster. People said it was raccoons or maybe squirrels. That's what they told themselves. But it didn't sound like animals. It sounded deliberate. The baby's foster family, the Carpenters, lived on the edge of town, just past the old mill road where the trees grew too close together. They were quiet people. Churchgoers. Honest. Sarah Carpenter posted one blurry photo of the baby to Facebook, no name, no caption, just the photo. The child in a bassinet staring up at the ceiling. The post got one like. Then her account disappeared. A week later, so did the Carpenters. Sheriff Decker drove out to their property after neighbors reported hearing screaming. Around 2 a.m., he found the front door open, the porch light still on, dinner plates on the table. No sign of a struggle, no blood, no signs of forced entry. Just an empty house with a smell inside like wet stone and scorched hair. The bassinet was still in the nursery. The blanket was gone. On the wall, scrawled in what looked like rust or old blood, were 3 words, "I am second." That night, it rained. Not water, but ash-gray, flaking, sour-smelling ash that fell in spirals like dead snow. It stuck to everything: roofs, windows, the skin of children who wandered out too far after sundown. Those kids didn't talk much anymore. Not after the ash. Some wouldn't speak at all. Others started whispering to corners of empty rooms, or holding their breath when they passed mirrors. One girl, Marley Nix, was found in her closet, rocking back and forth and whispering, "The man in the black dirt. He's under it. He's hungry." Her eyes were rolled back in her head. Her fingers were bloody from clawing the inside of the closet door. She never came back to school. The town started to rot at the edges. Trees turned brittle. The grass died even as rain fell in sheets. Animals were found mutilated in neat, symmetrical patterns. 4 sparrows nailed to a barn door in the shape of a triangle. A cow with its tongue sewn into its chest. The school's janitor found a human molar in a hallway drain, and the silence spread out. At first, it was just the nights. Then, mornings. Then entire days passed where no sound could be heard, no engines, no footsteps, no breath. People tried to record it. Phones died. Cameras glitched. Some swore the silence itself was alive, that if you listened long enough, you could hear something just beyond it, breathing, scraping. Waiting. Sheriff Decker held it together as best he could until he found the second card. It was on his windshield. One morning, white, plain, tucked under the wiper like a parking ticket. You heard the first. You saw the second. The third won't knock. No one had ever mentioned a first, not to him, not out loud. But that name rang in him like an old wound reopening. He remembered then a report from a town called Whitney, 3 counties over. A house that disappeared. A hole that remained. He remembered ignoring it, too far. Not his problem. Now it was. The next night, something moved under the town. They all felt it. Like a tremor, but deeper. More like a shift. Plates moving. Bones. Creaking. The kind of movement you only notice when everything else has stopped. People began to dream of stairs, long, spiraling ones carved into rock, leading down forever. Always down. And something waiting at the bottom. A mother drowned. Her toddler in the bathtub because she said it wasn't her baby anymore. Its eyes were wrong, she said. It knew too much. She hung herself in the garage an hour later. The preacher stopped preaching. The diner stopped opening. The radio only played static now. The town clock spun backward. By then, only a few people remained. Too scared to leave. Too scared to stay. Sheriff Decker stayed, too. Not out of courage. He'd started digging behind the station, quietly, each night, just like the reports from Whitney had described. He didn't know why. His hands just moved on their own. And he could hear it now, like a whisper buried under the soil. Something calling him by name. On the 33rd night, The baby returned. Not in flesh, not as a child, but in the form of something else. Something that walked on two legs but didn't cast a shadow. Something that knocked only once on every door, exactly at 3:03 a.m. Then moved on. No one who opened the door survived. Not fully. Some stayed standing, but they weren't people anymore. They whispered in dead languages. Their eyes bled in the sunlight. One woman bent in half backward and kept moving, walking like a spider into the woods. Sheriff Decker shot himself in the heart the next morning. But his body didn't rot. It stayed sitting in his office, mouth wide open, as if still screaming. And just like that, Trinity Falls disappeared. Not in fire, not in flood, but in forgetting. Maps no longer show the town. GPS reroutes around it. Mail comes back marked undeliverable. But if you drive long enough down the old mill road, if the air starts to thicken, and the silence presses against your skull like waterlogged cotton, you might find it. You might see the steps. And if you do, don't go near them, because on the second step now, where the baby once was, there's only a single card. Third. And nothing ever waits long. They were driving west on Highway 190, somewhere between Livingston and a nothing town called Dimebox, when the third message came through. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a text. It was a radio transmission, faint, breaking through the static of an old FM band no one used anymore, just past the last country station and before the religious one that only played sermons at 3 a.m. The sound wasn't music. It wasn't even a voice. At first, it was knocking. 3 knocks. Slow, hollow, then a voice, low and bone dry like it had been dug up from under 100 years of dust. It's almost ready. The third is waking. You are near. The couple in the car, Russell and Bree Kinney, didn't hear it clearly the first time. They were fighting something petty about their motel reservations, the usual frayed nerves that come with long drives through unlit country. Bree turned the volume down and told him to keep his eyes on the road. Russell muttered something about her always overreacting. By the time either of them noticed the radio was speaking, the signal was gone. The road grew emptier after that. Long stretches without gas stations, fewer mile markers. Trees hanging too low, like they were listening. The GPS lost signal somewhere past a dried-up lake called Stillwater Hollow. The trees closed in tight around the shoulders of the road, pine and oak and something else, barkless. Dead things that hadn't been there before. It started raining. Except it wasn't water. The windshield was streaked with something clear, but sticky like sap or egg whites. It made a hissing sound as it hit. Bree said to pull over. Russell told her there was nowhere to pull to. That's when they saw the sign. Bent, rusted, pocked with holes. The paint had long since worn off, but someone had spray painted one word across the metal in thick black strokes. Third. There was no arrow, no town name, no distance. Just that word. Russell slowed the car. Bree turned off the radio completely. Neither of them spoke. They just drove on into the growing dark, the road narrowing, the sky flattening like it was pressing down. At 9:33 p.m. They hit something. It came out of nowhere, pale, tall, human-shaped, and slammed into the hood. With a wet thud, the windshield cracked. Bree screamed. Russell braked so hard the tires screamed, fishtailed, then stopped on the shoulder. Steam rising from under the hood. For 10 long seconds. There was nothing but their breathing and the clicking of the hazard lights. They got out. There was no body. No blood. No dents. Just a smear of black handprints across the windshield. 4 of them. Too long and twisted, like whoever had left them had fingers that didn't bend right. Bree wanted to go back. Russell said there was no way to turn around. The trees had closed behind them. He wasn't kidding. The road they had come down was gone, swallowed. They drove on. The temperature dropped by 20 degrees in a mile. Bree could see her breath inside the car. The windshield started frosting at the corners. The world outside was dark, too dark. For a Texas night, like moonlight itself, had been turned off. Then the lights died. Not just the headlights. The entire car. Dashboard, dome light, power steering, all of it gone in a blink, like someone had sucked the power straight out of the battery. They were alone. The silence outside wasn't just quiet. It had weight, like it was watching them. Then the knocking started again. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, not on the car, but somewhere deeper, beneath them. Like something was knocking up from under the road. Bree whispered, "This is like that town. The one from the stories, Whitney or Trinity Falls. The ones that vanish." Russell didn't speak. He was staring at the road ahead. Something was there. A house. No, more like the suggestion of a house. Shadows shaped like a structure, rising out of the black, shifting slightly every time they looked away. The trees opened around it like they were afraid to touch it. There were no lights, no signs of life, but the door was open, not swinging. Not ajar. Just open, like it had always been waiting. Russell got out first. Something in his body moved like he was pulled, not walking, but following something only he could. "Here!" Bree shouted at him. He didn't look back. She followed because she couldn't bear to be alone. Inside, the house was dry. Too dry, like it hadn't held breath in 100 years. Dust coated everything, but there were no footprints, no spider webs. Just stillness and stairs spiraling down. Not up. There shouldn't have been a basement in that part of Texas. The ground wasn't stable enough. But the stairs went down anyway, vanishing into the earth, wrapped in darkness so thick it felt like cloth. Russell went first. Bree followed, holding the wall with both hands. After the 13th step, they heard it again. The voice from the radio, now inside their heads, whispering, "Third means open. Third means choice." On the 23rd step, Bree saw her mother, dead 15 years, died screaming. But there she was, standing in the stairwell, her mouth sewn shut, eyes weeping. "Ash," she held out her hands. Bree didn't stop. She just kept walking. On the 33rd step, the stairs ended. A chamber opened before them, not carved, not built, but grown. Like roots had hollowed the stone into a pulsing cavity. It breathed. At the center was a hole, not deep, not wide, but absolute. The kind of hole that wasn't just absence, but invitation. Russell approached it. Bree tried to grab him, but her fingers passed through him like smoke, and the hole spoke, not in words, in memories, feelings. Everything you ever regretted played back through the voice of someone you loved. It promised peace, power, understanding. But only for the third. Only for the one who chose it. Russell stepped in. The world cracked. Not exploded, not shook. It cracked like glass under pressure. Bree felt the air split, the ceiling ripple, and then the world went quiet. When she woke, she was alone. Back in the car. Engine running. No cracks in the windshield. No sign of the house or the woods or Russell, but the glove compartment was open. Inside was a single white card, 4th, and taped to the back, in handwriting she recognized as Russell's. "Don't let it choose. You. It has to be willing. It has to be real." She screamed until her throat bled, but she didn't turn the car around because she knew where she had to go next. The towns were connected. The messages were counting down. No. Up. Each one opening. Something older, deeper, wider. Each one choosing. And she was the 4th.